Wonderful to be back together again on a Monday morning. Today's message is called The True Price of Milk. Howard Kelly is considered to be the father of gynecology. He's also one of the big four professors who founded the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. Howard wasn't always a renowned physician, though. Once upon a time, he was a struggling student who had to travel to different towns selling goods door to door just to pay his fees. Now, there was a day when he was starving and couldn't afford a meal. He decided to ask for something to eat at the next house he visited. Otherwise, he was pretty sure he would pass out on the sidewalk before long. Now, the next door he knocked on was answered by a beautiful girl, and Howard momentarily lost his nerve. So instead of begging for food, he simply asked for a glass of water. Now the girl could see that this poor guy needed more than water. But she didn't have any food either, so she gave him a glass of milk instead. Howard gulped it down and immediately felt better. But he still felt a need to maintain some pride. "How much do I owe you?" he asked the girl. She smiled and said, "Well, my mother taught me never to take payment for kindness, so you owe me nothing." Now, many years later, Howard was a renowned gynecologist, healing women of all manner of seemingly untreatable illnesses and charging hefty fees for his much-needed services. Now, one day, a woman was brought to him. Local doctors had tried and failed to treat her and had sent her to the big city for specialists to study her condition while she waited to die. His colleagues took one look at the lady and declared that she would be dead by midnight, but Howard Kelly had other ideas. He worked tirelessly to cure this poor lady, and after a month, sent her home fit and well. Now, after some time, the lady received her bill from the hospital. She trembled as she opened the envelope, knowing that there was no way she could pay her bill without selling all her assets and borrowing some money too. To her surprise, the invoice had one sentence written on it: "Paid in full with a glass of milk." My dear friend, some people want to believe that real good deeds are done for no reward. They call it altruism. And I'm sure that happens, but the truth is that kindness is often an investment that can pay you back twice. First, it will reward you with a nice warm feeling at the moment that you perform a kind act. And then sometimes it comes back to reward you again at a future date when you are most in need of kindness yourself. Every time I get to the toll booth on the Tema motorway, I pay my own toll as well as the toll of the car behind me. I do this because once upon a time, someone did this for me. I appreciated it so much that I am now on a lifelong crusade to keep doing this every time I use the motorway, in the hope that one day the car behind me will belong to the kind stranger who once paid my toll. I only pray that on that day he or she will also have no change on them, like I did on the day they paid for me. My dear friend, if you want to feel good today, then do something kind for a stranger. Pick someone you have never met and make them remember this day forever. It doesn't even have to involve money. Just writing "You are an amazing person" on a post-it note and sticking it on the random car's windscreen will put a smile on a stranger's face for the whole day. But if you want to feel good for the rest of your life, then from today onwards, treat everyone you meet as if they were going to be dead by midnight and only you can save them. Extend to them all the care, the kindness, and understanding you can muster, and do it with no thought of any reward. Your life will never be the same again, I promise you. My name is Kujo Yankson, and the surest investment I can recommend is a random act of kindness. Expect no reward, and you are bound to get one. Good morning, Ghana.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM Muse with me, Mapito Sibili. Now in our first story, Bodies of persons who die from COVID-19 infections could be piling up in the coming days in the Cape Coast metropolis following the withdrawal of services by environmental health officers there. The EHOs, who are solely in charge of the COVID-19 private burials, are agitated over what they say is an exclusion from government's COVID-19 relief packages for frontline health workers. The officers say in spite of a series of petitions, authorities have failed to address their concerns raised over the package. Idris Shani is the head of the Cape Coast Environmental Health Unit and has been speaking with my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson.
The concerns of the workers are that equally, if there is a package or something of that nature that is due to people who are performing rules and it is due to the risks they are exposed to, we are exposed to similar risk in the line of our duty. Sometimes it will interest you to know that even in the course of preparing for burial, we engage families, if not for your strict adherence to the protocols of distancing and always being in your mask, you realize that you get so exposed. And aside that, to the direct involvement, that is when we'll go ahead and do the burials and all that. So, and the burial puts you in direct line, in direct contact with the bodies of the dead, of the casualties. So these are all risks that we are exposed to. Aside the burial issues too, you are out there when there is an infectious case in a particular location. We step out there to do the disinfection there. We make sure the environment becomes safe for people who are staying, either it is a house, a business premise, or sometimes even hospitals. We do this disinfection to keep the places safe for people to continue to be there. So, but if all this are being done, and these packages are supposed to benefit people who fall in various categories, and we are not in any of them, it's in the spirit of fairness. It's not good.
So are you saying that you are no more going to conduct private burials for COVID-19 casualties?
The intention is not to cease henceforth, pending hearing something better from the authorities to be able to also compensate for the risks and at least appreciate the risks that officers are going through. And then if you look at the burial stacks in the region, we are having the biggest brand of it. For now, our intention is to hold on with our burials.
And you're not going to carry out your duties until the authorities intervene?
For now, yes. We want to, at least something better should be done about this.
In the Upper West region, the Wa West District Director of Health Services, Dr. Clifford Venkumini, is worried about incessant robbery attacks on health workers in his district. He says this is hampering delivery of quality health care there. Dr. Venkumini has been speaking at the end-of-year performance review, and Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
The Wa West District is the second largest in the Upper West region in terms of communities after the Wa municipality. The Ghana Poverty Mapping Report placed the district with the highest poverty incidences and death rate in the region. Health is wealth, as the experts have always alluded. Suffice it to say that the health of the people in the district is tied to the poverty quagmire they are wallowing in. Aware of the situation, health practitioners in the district up the ante and work above themselves to ensure that they deliver quality health service to the people. Speaking at the 2020 Health Sector Performance Review Conference attended by major stakeholders, Wa West District Director of Health Services, Clifford Venkumini, opened up on some initiatives employed by the service to improve health care in the district.
We've noticed that our maternal health service, when people get complications at the grassroots and are supposed to be taken to the referral point, say the district hospital, they are usually challenged with transport. And what we have done as a directorate together with the hospital management is that we have placed vehicles, rehabilitated vehicles in some sub-districts or health centers to help transport maternal health cases to the district hospital for management, just to avert maternal deaths.
Despite the fee chalk, Clifford Venkumunu noted that incidences of suspected armed robbery attacks on staff and line of duty have scared them off, and as a result of that, stalled some of their operations.
As a district health directorate, we are supposed to conduct regular monitoring visits to our facilities. But in the case of insecurity, we get so afraid, let me put it that way, in accessing or going to these sub-districts or health facilities to do our monitoring. That is one. And also we collect samples from the periphery, the communities, the health centers and chief zones. We are supposed to transport these samples to the district for onward submission to the region. So all these, when we are doing it, we do it in fear. When we are able to organize meetings, before, let me say even before COVID, to have conferences and meetings, we get so scared that staff on their way are attacked.
Away from health-related stories, access to quality education in Kofi Koragodzi in the Nkwanta South municipality is difficult as some pupils are seen sitting on the floor due to lack of furniture. A 3-unit classroom provided by the Oti Regional Minister Designate, Dr. Joshua Makabu, is also not enough to accommodate the pupils who also walk long distances to school. Correspondent Ivy Setoji has the rest of the story.
More than 160 pupils in Kofikora, a farming community in the Nkwanta South municipality of the Oti region, do not know what is quality education for the past 13 decades since education was brought to the community. From Nkwanta Township to the municipal capital, it takes more than 1 hour to reach the community on a very deplorable road. Although portions of the road was cleared, it is very dusty, making it difficult for vehicles to ply the road. The community has no electricity, potable water, accessible roads, social center, library, internet and portable housing, making living and schooling in the environment very difficult. According to the head teacher of the primary school, Jiwa Peter, education was brought to the community in the year 2007 by a resident volunteer but has since been battling with teaching and learning equipment. He told the team of journalists who visited the school that although the Nkwanta Municipal Assembly absorbed the school a few years after its establishment, they are still lacking amenities.
The furniture situation in the school is very problematic. The furniture is not enough. The office has given us some small that we are using, but it's not enough at all. We are still suffering. So some of the children have to be sitting on the floor. When you give them exercise, writing becomes a problem.
The pupils were seen lying down on the bare floor due to lack of furniture to participate in the day's teaching, with many also barefooted and looking very underprivileged without even an official school uniform on them. An old mud house constructed by the community for the school has been abandoned due to its devastating state. However, a 3-unit classroom block, which was provided in December 2020 by the Assembly through the efforts of the Regional Minister Designate for Oti, Dr. Joshua Makubu, is not enough to accommodate each level from primary 1 to 6. A tour through the community saw a number of children who were not in school loitering around barefooted. A female teacher who was posted to the school in January 2021, Patience Bannerman, also narrated her ordeal.
I'm coming from Sinyano and I was posted to this place, to be a crack and me. So we came, we initially got our things and we went back and we came. This is the place we are now. We've accepted our faith. This is the house, the places. We have to teach also. These kids also need something to also grow up with. We here, we having no life, no network.
And in our last story, farmers along the White Volta in the Upper East region are still recovering from last year's flood that destroyed their farmlands. The farmers say they have lost virtually everything to the flood and lament assistance from government is yet to come. The region was hit with its worst flood in September and October last year. Human lives, livestock and farms were lost. Joe News' Muhammad Nurdin was there and filed this report.
Ariku Martin Akudugu is my name. 2016 National Best Farmer, first runner-up.
In September and October 2020, floods destroyed his over 500 acres of maize and rice fields in the Upper East region. Ariko Martin Akodugu was left devastated at home, wondering how to start all over again.
As you can see, this is my farmland, a little over 500 acres of land that I cultivated maize and rice. The maize were 320 acres. The rice was around 180. We also have mango plantation, as you can see. We lost everything through the floods.
The flood was caused by the Bagri Dam spillage in Burkina Faso and the heavy downpour. The Upper East region town of Kobore was not the only place affected. Many farms in the region and parts of the northern sector were submerged beyond their economic threshold. The most affected farmlands were within weeks of harvest, and all farms close to the White Volta were washed away. Mr. Akodugu invested 450,000 cedis in the over 500 acres of farmland, 3,600 bags of maize and 3,200 bags of rice were expected to be harvested at the end of the season. According to Mr. Akodugu, the investment was worth 2.6 million cedis.
In fact, the amount of money I invested in this was almost about 450,000 Ghana cedis. And what I was expecting to harvest at the end of the cropping season was around 3,600 bags of maize and 3,200 bags of rice. That would have been what I was expecting to harvest at the end of the season. The amount of money I would have at least as income would have been somewhere around 2.6 million Ghana cedis per the investment I made.
Before the flood and the Bagri Dam spillage, the farmers were hopeful their crops had done so well, and many were smiling. A bumper harvest was a dream that was about to come true, but Mother Nature had other plans, and the rains and flood took away their joy.
Wet season time, we always put our best more than the dry season. So when you look at the wet season, we use more than 1,000 acres here, and in fact, when you look at it, we gain nothing. But
they tell us that we to fill the forms, and they bring our teeth for us. We are able to fill the forms, but we haven't heard anything. Nothing comes on. We are begging the government that they should do what they should do something small to help us.
This is the highest impact, the highest flooding we have seen since I started cropping here, since 2008.
And that's it for the Muse with me, Mapita CBD.
Oh, hello there. Welcome aboard. It's another Monday. It's the start of the week. And of course, we do this at around this time. We dig into the papers. Thank you for joining us. Mama V.
Hi, this is another week. This is perhaps the last one.
The dress.
Oh, you are, huh? Thank you. What, you like? Because I said thank you. You didn't say you like.
Nowadays, I'm careful because I've realized that if I express my liking,
your girls are watching.
Debbie, I guess I'm not my bills, you know. each like.
I haven't even started charging you yet. You're running away.
My chocolate.
My chocolate.
But it's another beautiful morning. How are you today?
Oh, I am good. I'm ready to face the week. You know, it's like bring it on.
Charlie, the week didn't end. A bit.
It didn't end.
Oh no.
When I started,
you know that weekend thing. For me, it's not a reality.
Well, it ends for me. I have decided that it will end.
Fortunate to you.
Weekends.
Yeah. So the song we started the show with is So Much For You.
Yeah,
happy because you rested.
Absolutely.
Charlie?
Just do lazy stuff sometimes. Read unnecessary materials. Well, not really unnecessary, but you know those novels, those romantic novels sometimes. Like, just read. Just do something, you know?
Did you ever, thinking of the Silhouette Challenge and stuff, did you ever read those novels back in school that is it Mills
Sweet
and
Valley,
Boone, Silhouette? Did you ever read those?
I read Sweet Valley.
Sweet Valley.
Yes, sir.
How sweet was it?
I was addicted. Oh God.
You know, you brought my memories. Back then, the things people were. Hey.
Yeah.
That school isn't school anymore.
Well, and you know, I went to Zion College, okay, in Angloga, and we had to get books from the library. So you have to walk from Zion College to the library. We're 3 girls, and we were just in love with the books.
Right.
I read Hardy Boys as well. Hardy Boys was not the same as Sweet Valley, but yes, yeah.
For us, I mean, the library was at a central point. I remember House 1, St. Augustine's, Bishop Herman College, by the way. And I loved to go there. The librarian got to know. I mean, some of us were known. I think, was it Raymond? Archie? I mean, we
so you had a good library. You had a good library on campus.
On campus.
Okay.
I realized from when you were saying you had to walk to the library.
Yeah, we had to go to the...
You likely didn't have one.
We had to go to the town in order to access the library because it was better stock. Yes.
They must have taken some passion.
Oh yeah, Charlie. My life in Angloga.
But you see
I have to write a book.
You see the dividends is paying now.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
You sowed the seed.
Absolutely.
Well, I have the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Guide, the Finder, and the Daily Searchlight this morning. What do you have?
The Daily Graphic, Daily Dispatch, the Ghanaian Publisher, Business and Financial Times, and the Daily Statesman.
Okie doke, let's start with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Catholic bishops kick against LGBTQI, urge government not to succumb to pressure. They put out a release in recent times. That's on page 16 of the paper. NCCE to sensitize public to COVID-19 vaccines. And we've heard the information minister designate saying that some of these public officials are going to take the jab publicly, including he himself, just to let people know that it's not anything dangerous, else we wouldn't be taking it ourselves. I think that's a step in the right direction. Supreme Court's ruling can't be determined by anyone else, Justice Atuguba says so. And he's been calling for, both the parties to respect the decision of the court. 5 arrested in connection with young Dakpamili chieftaincy dispute, and it's from one dispute to another. When are we going to get past all of them? Different parts of the country, different disputes. Crowa residents appeal to IGP for help, and that's on page 3. And what are they asking for? They've appealed to IGP, Mr. James Opon Bueno, to take appropriate steps to intensify patrols, beef up security, and protect lives and property in the area. Apparently, there's been a lot of robbery attacks around the Reg Emmanuel Gray estates, and that has raised the alarm. A lot of people very, very concerned. When you go to page 4, minority demands probe into COVID-19 testing contract. Now, this is something I was discussing with the Honourable Member of Parliament for Northton, Okudzeto Ablakwa, just this past Friday, and some of what we actually discussed in here that has come to bear on the conversation. Check that out on page 4. When you go to the middle spread of the paper, it's a story about the Catholic bishops, then LBCs to start paying cocoa farmers today. I'm talking about the local buying companies. Picture there of Dr. Usu Afriye Akoto, Minister Designate for Agriculture. On the back page, satellites seek Gambia's scalp. I beg your pardon. And then Hearts bounce back. Hearts finally, returning to winning ways after how many losses and draws? Well, they beat the Dwarves. And when you meet Dwarves, well, you know what to expect. With all respect to the Dwarves. Sharks fans attack ref and Ashgold crush Ediana. Those are the stories in the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
I don't know why it's difficult for you to just stick to the headline. Hearts bounce back. I've read it for you, Ben. Let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper.
More like
Daily Graphic newspaper, front page, accept election petition outcome. Justice Atuguba advises Ghanaians. So this is retired Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice William Atuguba. Remember him? He was presiding judge in the 2012-2013 election petition, the very first one. And when journalists got hold of him, well, they decided to ask him, obviously, questions related to what's happening around. And some of them specifically wanted to know what he thought about the Electoral Commission chair testifying. And he said, okay, here's what he said. He asked that people avoid directing the court on how to handle the issue, noting that such actions could lead to contempt. The Supreme Court, he said, and this is a quote, including Chief Justice, have been vetted and approved by Parliament, who are the representatives of the people. So it is important for all actors, particularly the lawyers and the adjudicators, to bear in mind at all times that the decision of the court involves the sovereign welfare of the people of Ghana. Wisdom right there. Let the people listen. He says accept election petition outcome, and if you disagree, you must use the means within the confines of the law in dealing with it. Also, Buick Power inaugurates 6 new modules for project affected people. Pay civil servants as politicians. That's a call from business executive and statesman Sir Sam Jonah. Here's exactly what he said in an interview with the Daily Graphic newspaper. He's called for an attractive compensation system for civil and public servants, and he says that's urgent to attract and retain the best workforce for the public sector. He puts the politicians and the civil servants together. He says both groups worked for the same state, but the gap between their remunerations was wide to the extent that it risked discouraging young professionals seeking careers in the public sector. They spoke to him about other issues, including COVID-19. You can grab the paper and read the rest of the story. In the center spread, the International Monetary Fund has advised Ghana to increase investment in digital economy to maximize its benefits. Family planning key to demographic dividends. That's a call or a position held by some development partners. COCOBOD to begin payments of LBCs this week. That's the licensed buying companies for 2020-2021 crop season. The Minister Designate for Food and Agriculture, Dr. Uswe Friye Akoto, said during his vetting. On the back page, hearts subdue dwarfs. Accra Hasselfolk reacted to their off-pitch woes last week with a 3-2 win. I actually thought it was like 1-0. This is 3. That's a lot of goals. Young Scorpions determined to stay stats lights. It's also another sports headline on the back page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. I'm going to Karela, I told you. But still, phobia. Okay, that's it for the paper.
Karela phobia.
Oh, there's on page 5 in the graphic. Sorry, 7 die in Nigerian Air Force plane crash. 7 people died after a Nigerian Air Force plane, Beechcraft's King Air 350, crashed short of a runway in the capital Abuja yesterday morning, according to military officials. The Nigerian Air Force plane had earlier reported an engine failure, according to a military spokesperson. He said the aircraft en route to Minna in the northern states of Niger crashed while returning to the Abuja airport after reporting the possible engine failure. That's tragic. 7 persons dying in that incident. Okay, I guess I'm done with the graphic.
Let me do the daily guide now, and maybe I should start with this song. Obrafo used this some time back. Asemem penipa. We've become breadbasket, Dr. Uswe Friye. You go to market more often. I do too, but not so often.
What's that?
How much is a finger of plantain, or kontumri, sebe, wele, and the kontumri?
If you're fortunate, you can get 3 for 5 cedis, the kontumri. When I say 3,
like 3,
like,
okay.
Yeah, otherwise you can get 1 for 5 cedis. Depending on where you go. It's become very expensive. Tomato is also still expensive. Yeah.
The Agric Minister designate, does he shop in some places that we don't shop in?
Well, he's not talking about the cost, is he?
Well, in recent times,
maybe he
mention has been made of that, especially during his vetting. But this bread basket bit, you know, but well, we go take him so. You know, he's been talking about our maize production and all of that, and that we're doing so well. Ayo. NDP exposes NDC demo. They were supposed to have a joint demonstration. We'll check out what the story is saying to find out.
Is it the same 24th picketing? Oh, that's
Page
different.
3 will confirm that when we get into the story. It actually says the NDP has vehemently denied claims that it is planning a demonstration alongside so-called disgruntled opposition NDC elements against the Electoral Commission and the Supreme Court. That's the thrust of it. Now, there's a statement signed by the NDP's General Secretary, Alhaj Mohammed Frimpong. The party founded by former First Lady Nana Konadu Agyemang-Rawlings had no hand to what he called the diabolical attempt to disturb the peace of the country. So that is that. The police has been cracking down on demonstrations and even so-called picketing attempts in recent times. So we'll see how that goes. NCA, NLA crack whip on Alpha. FDA CAF endorse herbal medicine. Now this story, I'll get into it when we return. It's on page 6. And it talks about the Hepa Plus herbal mixture, locally made supplement for general well-being, which supposedly has received massive endorsement to contribute to effective management of the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana, and some activity from CAF leading to that endorsement. It's interesting because in recent times, Archbishop Kalenda in Cameroon has also been talking about this, herbal cure that they are using in Cameroon, which our own Peter Cardinal Turkson has approved, because some people had the virus in the Vatican, apparently used this herbal remedy, and, they, so to speak, received their cure. So today, even as we delve into that conversation, I would want to get into herbal medicine and what we're doing with it. John versus Jean, fresh motion filed. We'll also be talking Parliament today. Let's get to this story, some more that I cited that we can talk about. Let me quickly get to them. So on the middle spread, in the middle spread of the paper, I am moving to Ghana, Stevie Wonder. And he says, telling Oprah, I don't want to see my children's children have to say, oh, please like me, please respect me, please know that I am important, and please value me. What is that? So situation in the US, so to speak. But Stevie has been talking about relocating to Ghana since 1994. So what's all the noise about this? It's not the first time, 1994. Anyway. Policewoman grabbed over fake insecticide. Now, you know that when the law breaks the law, no, say Charlie, and Wayeshi, and Deputy Clerk Apodola dies. Those are some major stories there. On the back page, referee blocks goal-bound strike. Kruth Athul, that would be Blue Cross, basically. Had a 7-day showdown with Toluca at the Azteca Stadium, and it proved dramatic because the referee unintentionally blocked a goal-bound ball. I'll not read this Hearts will bounce back. I've read it already. Inter and Milan fans breach COVID-19.
You've read it like 3 times.
Rules. Richard Kingston is the one talking about Hearts will.
But they've already bounced back. Which one is Will?
But they are bouncing back. So that's it with the Daily Guide newspaper.
Let's do the Daily Dispatch. And I've been curious looking at the issue of how some of the nominees that appeared before the vetting committee answered questions related to homosexuality. The paper is highlighting on that, how nominees responded to questions on homosexuality. I will go to the back page and bring you back some of the responses. Consonant 80 years in 2016, Alex Mould to government renegotiate Aker Energy deal. NLA shuts down illegal short code of Alpha Lotto Limited. But my interest really is this story about the ministers responding to the questions on homosexuality. So first, they talk about Shirley Ayokobuche, Foreign Affairs Minister Designate, and here's what she said in quotes: Ghana is a sovereign country, but as part of our foreign policy, we engage countries all over the world. America is one of our strongest friends, but in this country, we have laws, and our laws work and must work. So in spite of what somebody will say, and in this case, President Biden, the laws of Ghana criminalizes on unlawful carnal knowledge, and therefore the laws of Ghana definitely are supreme. and that is what we all adhere to. So that's Shali Ayokoboche. Here's Sarah Ajwa-Safo. Mr. Chair, the issue of LGBT is an issue that when mentioned, it creates some controversy. But what I want to say is that our laws are clear on such practice. It makes it criminal. Section 104 of the Criminal Code prohibits one from having unnatural kind of knowledge with another person. So on the issue of its criminality, it is non-negotiable. On the issue of our cultural acceptance and norms, these practices are also frowned upon. So for me, these are two distinct clarities on the matter, and that is what I strongly stand for, unquote. Here's Kojopo Nkrumah, Information Minister designates. Customary laws frowns on LGBT activities. People say despite the criminal code on the general position of customary law, it is just mere expression. They are just advocating for it. But if you ask me about law and background, I would say that it is when somebody like me will argue that then we should be able to contemplate legislation in the interest of public morality, which will not be against the Constitution, but we will now say that you cannot advocate for and promote LGBT activities in this country. All right, so these are three different persons speaking about the same subject matter.
Ayo.
Oh, God. Charlie. We'll discuss this matter on this show. Are we confused as a state? I think
it's pretty clear. Wasn't it in
the late
Uganda
former President Mills,
when
may
they
his soul
had
rest in peace. I think he was quite very clear on the matter, and that helped us. You know, yeah.
But you say that helped us. It didn't change what the law says. The law has always said what it has said.
Exactly, but it's stated in terms of our focus. You know, that's what the leader says, that I will not tolerate it is not something that's acceptable. Culturally, it's not Ghanaian. And so I guess it put everybody to sleep. So you knew that you couldn't, for instance, come in as an advocate.
But has that changed? Did that change on the back of what our president said?
That has changed a lot. Because I remember in that interview, and I may not get it exactly as he said it, but this is how I understood it, that we haven't had people advocating for it. It was almost like we're not there yet. Okay. But when we get there, like when we get to that bridge, then we will cross it. We'll see how we do it.
It is bound to
exactly.
happen.
I guess we've come to that point where we need him to state, apart from what is in the criminal code, especially when we've heard that there's an office that was open. There's One Love, the Kobolo is an artist. He performed at that opening, and he says that
the office has supposedly been shut.
He speaks for, well, again, that's something that we are hearing. But you see, I think between like 2 weeks ago, last week, we've heard a lot of things. And on the back of what our president said in terms of people were not advocating yet, we know clearly that we're here.
So people are advocating now.
We need, okay, what does he also say on this subject apart from what is in our laws?
I think this is a very slippery slope for the president. Because in one breath, he has said people are not advocating for it, and now people are advocating for it. I mean, they've always done it, but now the pressure seems to be mounting with even external influences. We saw the Australian High Commissioner and his own, participation, and the reasons he cited.
He has assigned reasons for us.
Diplomatic immunity, but again, people have raised concerns about respecting what we stand for.
Thank you.
Because in the end, we could also declare him persona non grata, depending on what the law decides to, the approach that government decides to. I'm just putting out what the law is like. But in the end, it's a very slippery slope for Mr. President, because you said there's not enough activism, if you like, for the thing.
Word, isn't it?
And it's bound to happen. So now, what do you come and say?
No, I don't think it's slippery necessarily. So this is where he has to state, okay, even though this is the case...
Does he have to tell us what the law is? We know what the law is.
No, he doesn't have to say what the law is. He has to say, because he's the leader, isn't it? He's the ultimate leader. He has to say what he believes and what he wants us to follow. Former President Mills didn't say what the law said. He stated his position on it. And I think that that's what we need. I mean, forget about legislation, but I kind of agree with Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, because it looks like we need something clearer than what is in the criminal code we need to say something. But beyond that, we need to hear our leader make a firm statement.
So these
and then
bits
we will go with
about
it.
unnatural carnal knowledge, sodomy, and the rest. We know what the law says about them. Maybe. And this bit about human rights and everything, it just makes everything more complicated, doesn't it?
There is a video, you know, there's a, and it's, so somebody just tracks some of the things that people have said. So I feel like this, so I want to be like this. And she says, so if your child says, I feel like an adult, so I want to start drinking alcohol, I feel like an adult, I want to get married. Is that, are you going to uphold it because that's what the child feels like?
Years back, I came across exactly that bit. There was talk, these things are regurgitated, they're brought back from time to time. And it was like, okay, so are we going to get to the point where a child says, I feel like an adult, so treat me like an adult?
Yeah.
And then what if that child commits a crime? Do you now treat the person like an adult, or do you treat the person as a child? You get it. So there are so many considerations. And I know someone, just over the weekend, I saw a lady who actually, she's white, she's Caucasian. I don't know whether it was tattooed, and became black.
Because
her entire body.
Because she felt like she was black in a white skin.
In white skin.
Yeah.
I mean, where are we going?
Yeah. Somebody cut his hands off because he felt he was supposed to be born disabled. Like, that's supposed to be normal.
Right.
Yeah. That's where we're going. Yeah.
Okay. I think I should cease talking on these matters. The Finder newspaper.
You can't cease talking on it.
No, I mean for now, because
I get it for now. But there's a reason we're here. There's a reason. I think there's a higher course, and we have to stick to it. We don't have to stop talking about it.
The Finder newspaper, it makes me sigh, really. Government must close down LGBTQI office. Catholic bishops, government officials will publicly take doses. We've mentioned that. Covishield, Sputnik V vaccines coming, Sputnik 5. And, you know, pregnant women and children have been excluded. Interestingly, when I spoke to the Israeli Trades and Economic Commission head, some of the people we are excluding, they are adding, but it depends on different considerations.
I think they said the
risk groups as well.
The virus has slowed down drastically because of the vaccines. And now they've gotten to the point where, you know, some people in the name of ideology may not want to take the vaccines. So they're now discussing what should we do. Yeah. So for instance, if you haven't taken it, not because of health concerns, but because of some ideology, then you shouldn't go to certain public places.
Yeah.
They're kind of debating.
And today, as we talk COVID, some of that will come up, because if you don't want to take it, then don't endanger other people's lives.
So that's the conversation now.
That one there,
Israel is definitely doing fantastic with,
KIPTC ranked Africa's second most influential think tank in international affairs. I thought you'd say hooray to that. We're making strides. And so that's it with the Finder newspaper. I just wanted to be very brief on that. Are you done with your stack?
I think I'll let go the rest.
I think I'll also let go.
We will do myjoyonline.com.
Like, can I just do the story though, very quickly? The one about, I just had to. I don't know whether it was the Daily Guide right before we go online. The one about, yes, policewoman grabbed over fake insecticide. Now, a policewoman and her husband have allegedly been apprehended for illegally producing fake insecticides and using the trademark of a company without authorization from the owners. Suspect Sergeant Felicia Danswa of Offenso MTTD, after the arrest, was released to report later on, but her husband, Eric Dako, was detained to assist in investigations. Why was she released and her husband kept? And an officer of the law.
Oh, maybe one is a manufacturer, one is supporting artist.
Sin is sin. A breach of the law.
I mean, it depends on what the details are and who is the real culprit.
I saw the story and I was like,
culprit in this instance. So maybe
a police officer is doing this. What do you expect of the?
Yeah, but that's bold. They're using somebody's trade name. Hey.
Anyway.
All right, we'll spend some time on myjoyonline.com before we make way for sport. But there's a very special man in my life who is celebrating his birthday today. Oh, I know your mind is going somewhere. Okay, myjoyonline.com. GS to implement tighter regimes to deal with drug and substance abuse in schools. Remember this issue coming up strongly last week, very scary. And then MFRPAL picking it up on the probe yesterday and breaking it down a bit further. So some of the nominees appearing before the committee this week, you should expect there's Samuel Jinapor, Peter Amewu, Mustafa Yusuf, and some others you can read on. Plenty stories on myjoyline.com. Okay, here's my dedication. He's a very cool boss with a very good heart. His name is Mr. Kwame Ajekum, and he is CEO of Jefanko Abattoir in Medina. And happy birthday to you, sir.
Did you say abattoir?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
What were you thinking?
Right. We will come collect the meat.
Mr. Kwame Ajekum, happy birthday to you. I should have prepared to sing a happy birthday song, but enjoy your birthday.
It's not too late.
Sir.
We can do it.
He's a fantastic gentleman, and I wish him well.
Lovey, I dare you. Let's do this.
Please call him today and wish him a happy birthday.
I dare you. Let's do this.
Oh, Ben, I won't take it. Thank you. This one I'll swerve.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Oh.
I did it on her behalf. So
Thank you.
I get all the meat.
Oh, you're my savior.
It's time now for sports. Do stay.
And it's time to bring you your morning dose of sports. Thanks for joining me here on AM Sports. My name is Hans Mengsando. Let's begin with a recap of the weekend's action from the Ghana Premier League, and Ashanti Gold, probably the biggest winners of the weekend, thrashing Indiana Stars by 4 goals to 0. Here are the highlights.
Stars. Robert Dabo is in goal. Regular pair of hands for Ash Gold and his opposite number, Joseph Ado. Good to see Yaya Mohammed back quite recovered from the shoulder injury. I thought this was going to be copybook from the training ground. Free kick is on. Deflection by a header. And it's a long one. The target is Yaya Mohammed. Opportunities coming the way of Ash Gold. This is Abagna. Long crossing. That should have been dealt by Joseph Ado. Referee noticed an infringement. And the ball. Julian Nunu blows the whistle. A few steps in the run, and it's 1 goal up for Ashanti Gold. Fumble at all. 1, 2, 3 steps. He had already picked his spot and sent Joseph Ado the wrong.
In the Ghana Premier League 6 2009-2010 season.
Well, Ash Gold come forward again for goal number 2. The ball misses everyone. But unfortunately, Yawano had the easiest of tasks of taking his time and placing the ball in the net.
There's no cohesion, there's no spirit, and you could look at how the goal was scored, and Yawano had the easiest touch, and he finished with a plumb.
Brighter J on the far side. Bright sends in the cross. Fortunately, there we go. End of the first 45 minutes, and it's been good enough for Ashanti Gold.
Well, Prince, it's 45 minutes, and Ash Gold are up by 2 goals to 0.
Len Clay Stadium in Obuasi, where we're bringing you the second half of the match between Ashanti Gold and Aduana Stars. Half-time score, Ashanti Gold 2, Aduana Stars 0. Aduana Stars latching onto the ball. Clear chance for Yaya Mohammed. Shot is fired at goal. Robert Dabo is beaten to it. Clearance off the line. Ball still stays in play, I beg your pardon. But Jacob avoids that challenge. Holds on to the ball. Sends in the cross. Copybook goal from Ash Gold.
With a telling pass to Jacob Appel, and Yaya Mohammed couldn't stop Jacob Appel.
On David Abagna. Finds Queen. Queen back to Bill. This should be an opportunity for Yaya Mohammed. It was blocked and blocked again. Third time of asking, and still the ball will not enter the net.
Frank Akoto, the former. It should be a 4th goal. It is a goal. Build-up was so fluid. Ashanti Gold have kept a clean sheet and
David Abagna there with a 4th goal for Ashanti Gold, and for the Indiana Stars. Hard luck for them. The ball would simply not get into the box. Well, it's turbulent times for Accra Hearts of Oak. Boardroom issues found discontent, but over the weekend there was some respite for the Phobians as they beat Ebusua Dwells by 3 goals to 2.
Most advanced midfielder there, having a footwear and Botry in behind them. The cross that followed was disappointing.
Here is Razak, he goes down. It's a penalty. Razak Issa brings down Patrick Razak for whistles. Edu steps forward. And he makes it 1-0 for Hearts of Oak. No questions about that delivery. Spot on, accurate, and powerful. Hearts 1, Dwells 0.
He wasn't messing around with this one, Victor Edu. People had read it as well.
Now Patrick Razak twisted and turning. He goes past Anafo, another penalty. Anafo brings down Patrick Razak for a second penalty, going to go for power again. He steps forward. Edu again, he smashes it, and Hearts of Oak are 2-0 up.
Yeah, it's a carbon copy of the first.
Can go past Adika and Anafo. Albert Hammond is onside. He's got Nuru Sule to beat. He sets up Moro, and they pulled one back.
Going to Larry to Smile Moro on that far side. The movement is good, but this one will go down as a goalkeeping error.
And he gifted possession, and he came in with a tackle. Penalty for Dwarfs.
He's on the wrong side of the attacker. I thought Larry Smile got a bit of the ball as well.
Nkrumah Kosa scores, and Ebusua Dwells have equalized. It's 2-2. Hey, they say they don't.
And come on, the man, the skipper stepping up.
All the have begun doing, and Hearts of Oak can punish them. Obin Jr. Here is Manaf. That's the goal. The Phobians.
I'm thanking the goal scorer Isaac Mensah, who leaped off the bench to replace Patrick Razak. Is that build up, that ball into Manaf, trying to go past him, he couldn't, but on the turn. Goalkeeper lost his foot in there because he was wrong-footed with the strike. It was a good one on the turn.
Thank you for staying with us. Our focus now, the coronavirus. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers from far and near, COVID is very dangerous. It's as real as it comes. How do I know? Well, I got COVID very early into this year. I tested positive for a deadly cocktail of malaria, typhoid, and COVID-19. It was, as I am sure some of you can imagine, a terrible experience. My COVID-19 test result delayed a bit, but I finally realized I had all 3 at the same time, or that COVID had been masquerading as these other illnesses. How did this happen? I don't know. I had been, and I still am, observing the protocols and have been very cautious. All I know in the end is God saved me. I lost my sense of smell, saw my appetite take a severe beating. In fact, I'm still in the process of recovering it. Right now, I can only eat really well when I'm starving. If not, I really struggle with food. I suffered extreme fatigue, and even now I get a bit tired quicker than before, and so I've started working out a bit more to build up my stamina and resistance. It wasn't funny at all, believe you me. Some of you saw pictures of mine and said I'd lost so much weight. That's absolutely true. I'm still regaining that together with my appetite, and it's all been hectic, really hectic. I'm over it now, but the question is COVID over me? COVID is a nasty and unforgiving little monster. You don't want to risk catching it, believe you me. But you see, the more we talk about it and the more we know about it, the better we can fight it and the greater the strides we shall make against it. That's why this morning, we're sharing with you the real COVID-19 stories of Maria and Shadrach. Maria works with the University of Health and Allied Sciences. She's been a COVID task force member for that institution, which has been at the forefront of COVID-19 sensitization and testing in the Volta region. She's a COVID police, really, but she still contracted the dreaded COVID-19. For Shadrach, he's a pastor. He's been trying to maintain his flock, but something happened to him that changed his entire viewpoint. From our guests, however, I'd like to share with you something Maria has given us permission to share. Her thoughts and frame of mind a day after she got her positive test result for COVID-19. We'll be starting the conversation shortly, but do watch this.
Well, last night, lo and behold, the results came in, and I tested positive. And so this is my new reality. You know what really incensed me is the fact that I have been so obsessed with keeping to the protocols, believing that if I did my part and kept myself and my struggle safe by being responsible, that surely it would work. But guess what? Your efforts do not work in isolation. My efforts did not work in isolation, clearly. Because while you're doing your part, other people outside your bubble are working just as hard, as if the intent is to make sure that they take you down with them, because clearly they want to go down. It's a suicidal intent, and they must be wanting to take you along with them. And so they do everything in their power to flout the rules, to break the protocols, to vilify you.
So that is Maria Jura, and she'll be joining the conversation this morning. Let me also quickly mention that we'd like to hear from you watching us right now. What has your COVID experience been? Have you got COVID, survived it? What is your story? Do you know someone who has, someone close to you, family, friend? What is the story? Even if the person kicked the bucket, let's be open and let's talk about it. When we activate the phone lines, that number will be rolling on your screen, 0302 211 691 extension 2. You can call that number when the phone lines are activated and share your story with us this morning. But our guests this morning, as we discourse on this matter, Maria Jura, she's actually Director of Public Affairs at the University of Health and Allied Sciences. We also have Dr. So let's just quickly get the name correct. Dr. Kwabena Duedu, head of the COVID-19 Testing Center, University of Health and Allied Sciences, and Dr. Eugene Dodoi, head of Psychological Medicine and Mental Health Department, School of Medicine, University of Health and Allied Sciences. Another survivor who will be sharing his story, Shadrach Opong. He is actually a pastor. Lady, gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Great. So I'm sure I can hear everybody. If you've, I don't know whether everyone is, the sound is active, but if you've not unmuted, please do so. But Maria, I'll start with you. That clip we just showed, you appear to be upset, angry, even close to tears. What was going through your mind? This was just a day after you tested positive for COVID-19. What was running through your mind?
Ben, good morning. Good to see you on here. Yes. This, in fact, just watching the clip, my heart is racing a bit, as you can imagine. This was the morning after. So I had found out on the Wednesday, which was 2 days before at work, that I was a contact of someone that had, been confirmed to have it. And so that Thursday, I went and got tested. Fortunately, as you mentioned, working at UHAS and the testing lab just being a building or two away, this was done quickly. And so by evening, I got my report. Dr. Duedu called me himself, and I said, how is it? He said, And so that was the beginning of the conversation. And after he told me that I had tested positive, honestly, I don't know what I told him. And this may be a good opportunity to apologize to him if I inadvertently used some language which just came, because I don't really remember what I told him. But this is the issue. The next morning, at dawn, I went outside and recorded a message to myself. The whole night, needless to say, I did not sleep. And every time I assumed that I would close my eyes to attempt to sleep, I would wake up in what I now know was a panic attack, and be out of breath, run to the bathroom, splash water over my face, try to calm myself down, think about taking my blood pressure, and then deciding not to because I didn't want to see the elevated number and then get more agitated. And so this was my frame of mind that morning after not sleeping the whole night. It was particularly worrying for me because my 83-year-old mother lives with me. She's asthmatic. She is mostly immobile. She most of the time uses a wheelchair. And actually that whole week she had a really loud cough that she had been coughing. So this, the cough in and of itself was not that unusual because, like I said, she had, asthma. And the air quality in Ho at this time of year is not particularly good with all the bush burning and all of that. But my first thought was, oh my God, I'm about to kill my entire family. This was the thought that I've been stayed with and woke up in the morning. And so you can imagine how agitated I was. This frame of mind not only sat with me that entire next morning, but I also had to then go to work and face my entire directorate and have my staff, test and all of that. So we all did that. But this is the thing, is that for the next 5 days, this news I got on Thursday night, my mother got tested on Friday. We were waiting for the results for several days. And so that entire time, 5 days, where we were waiting to get my mother's results, I did not sleep. I would close my eyes to sleep, and then I would sit up in bed, as if from a nightmare, but I hadn't had a nightmare. I hadn't dreamt anything. I would just find myself awake and gasping for air and rush to the bathroom. And
Maria, let me just mention this. I just want to inquire of you, but before I do that, I've been hearing some sounds in the background. Pastor Shadrach Opong, I don't know whether it's from the television behind you, but you might want to silence it if it's not. Right, so whoever actually has something playing in the background, please actually mute it. Thank you very much. Maria, at this point in time, what do you feel was triggering these panic attacks? What were you afraid of? Death?
I was afraid of what was to come in the days ahead. Because as at that moment, I had not been officially told yet that I was asymptomatic. Of course, I know what the term means. And so I sort of assessed myself and said, oh, but I don't feel anything. I mean, honestly, I have not felt healthier than I do now. I mean, I exercise regularly, not vigorously, but it has become part of my lifestyle for many years now. I'm on all sorts of, immune boosters and medication, which I religiously take and all of that. And I eat very healthily. And I felt healthy. I mean, I didn't have anything approaching a sore throat, a cold, a headache, nothing. No malaria symptoms, no fevers, nothing like that. And so for me, there were several fears at play, which I have assessed going backwards and realized that this is what it was. The day on which I got the test and the results happened to be the birthday of my younger sister, who passed away 2 years ago after a short battle with breast cancer. And so you can imagine my mindset. If I were to think instinctively, oh my God, let me tell my mother so that we can protect ourselves, that was the worst day on which to tell her news like this. And so I didn't say anything. But then I started separating from her even more than I already do. I already practice safe distancing with her because I'm fully aware that I'm the only one who goes out in public and comes back home.
Right.
And so her welfare has been top priority for a year now. I don't go into her bedroom to even say, hi, I'm back from work, unless I've been to the bathroom, washed my face, washed my hands, any visible parts of my body, and then put on my mask, and then I go say hi to her. So I couldn't even do that. And then I couldn't explain to her why I wasn't coming near her. And my mother is not a quiet person. She will not take this quietly sitting down. And so she would call out to me, where are you? Why are you dodging me? What is going on? Is everything okay? And so I had to deal with all these, plus the knowledge that I was potentially going to break really horrible news to not just her, but my extended family. I mean, my sister, who also lives in Ho, has little children, and they regularly come over to visit grandma and to be babysat and to spend weekends with us and all of that. And so, of course, I immediately called my sister and said, this is what has happened. You should go get tested immediately. So she did that with her older kids. They went to the lab and did the test. Fortunately, they're all negative.
Okay, Maria, let's hold it right there. I'll come back to you to talk about how you feel about observing all the protocols and still getting COVID. But let me come to Pastor Shadrach Opong at this point in time. Shadrach, thank you once more for joining us. Now, what was your experience? You pastor a church. I mean, you go about your daily activities. Somehow you were observing the protocols only to be hit, bam, man of God, you have COVID. How did you take it? How did you react?
Thanks for having me, Ben. Greetings to your viewers. And okay, so for my case, I was going by normal duties. I think I remember there was one Saturday I had to travel to Tema area to officiate a funeral. And so we returned that evening, and my wife was complaining about headache and bitter mouth and weaknesses. So we decided that she should go and see a doctor. Maybe it could be a malaria or something like that. And so we did that. And she, after going through the malaria stuff, she was still experiencing those symptoms. And so we decided that she has to go and do the test so that in case there is something that we are not aware of, we can start early fighting it. And so she went to do the test on Monday, I think around getting to the part of January. And then she did a test on Monday. They said Wednesday she was going to have the result. And then it didn't come. So on Thursday, it came and it was positive. But I was already, I had already psyched myself that she could be positive, and therefore she might have infected all of us. But she's a nurse, and so as a nurse, for me, it was going to be normal if she contracted COVID. And so she tested positive, and then we went to the Rage COVID center to meet the doctors there, and then they gave us the medication to start. In fact, what they said was that once she is a mother, she has been cooking for us, she has been doing all sorts of things for us, and she has it, the possibility that all of us will have it is high.
Right.
And therefore we should start the medication and then go and do the test. So we even started the medications before we did the test. And so on the Monday, we also did a test. I mean, myself and the kids.
So it was the doctors that suggested to you that you should start the medication even before testing?
Yes, for him, once she has tested positive and we are so close to her, it's highly possible that we all have it.
So tell us, just for the sake of time and to exhaust what we really want to do with this, in the end, what was the result for the family? For the rest of you?
Positive. And in fact, before the result came, the result delayed a little. I mean, it took about 9 days for us to get a result. But before the result, I couldn't sleep. I sleep at around 9, 10, and by 1, by 2, I'm up. As if somebody is telling you to wake up. And then by the time I'm up, my whole bed is wet. I mean, I have been sweating like something. And I didn't have much of the headache, temperature, and the coughing, no. But my kids were having temperature issues. And then my wife had already had those things. And so personally, my story, if you see me during the period, you would think that I didn't have anything because nothing was showing.
So you were kind of asymptomatic
and that's what
in a way.
I think a lot of people out there think that they need to see you, maybe, excuse my language, bleeding through your nose, and then maybe you cannot walk, you are on a stretcher or maybe in a wheelchair, for them to believe that probably you have COVID, but it's not like that.
Right. Let me ask you, as a man of the cloth, having your family, your entire family hit by COVID, did it impact your faith in any way? Did you think, God, why me at any point?
Well, I think that is the time to even trust the Lord the most, because all things work together for good for those who love God. And let me tell you this, COVID probably might have helped me to impact more life than before, because I mean, you might have heard that I started writing about letters from COVID-19 prison. In fact, with my experience, let me add that after COVID, I had post-COVID complications. And so I had to be admitted at the ICU at Kolebu. I spent about 4 days there. It was terrible. I mean, I don't know whether it's permitted for me to share some of the pictures and video that I took at the center. Then it's terrible. You see, no human being should get there. No human being should get there. But my experience there showed me how God is so merciful, so loving and caring, and how God, put us in situations for us to appreciate the provisions He does for us every single day. Because at a point in time, I started fighting my wife that she connived with my doctor to put me at the ICU because I was feeling fine. I was fine. But the doctors, they think that, or they thought that, hey, you are dying, okay? You are having blood clots inside you. Your sugar is shooting up, and therefore you can collapse. And so being there and seeing people, I came to appreciate the fact that God said we should be obedient. You remember the Bible says that if you're obedient, you will live longer. Children, obey your parents, for this is the commandment, that you may live longer. Live longer has to do with obedience. And so I got to understand that people out there who have taken this thing to be a joke, to be a political, thing, and not obeying the various rules and protocols that have been put in place are seriously infecting people.
Right. Let's hold it right there. Those who are taking this for a joke and not obeying the protocols, and that's a great worry. I'll be coming to Dr. Duedu shortly because he's head of a testing center at the University of Health and Allied Sciences. But before I do that, Maria, how did it make you feel, the fact that you were observing all the protocols? You are a member of the COVID-19 task force in the University of Health and Allied Sciences. You are like a COVID police on campus. You do everything, yet you still got COVID-19. Very briefly, how did that make you feel? Frustrated?
You know what? My initial feeling was just, I was very livid. I was so angry because I knew it, like they said, as Job said, the thing that I most feared, this is it. And this is exactly what I told my staff, that everything that we have been fighting to prevent, the reason why I am the way I am, and you people have given me a name behind my back, and people look at me sideways when they come in, and I throw them out and say, you cannot enter this office without them. This is the reason why. This is exactly what we're trying to prevent. And so, honestly, I was very, very, very annoyed because I knew that this is not on me. God forbid that my mother's results or my extended family's results or my house girl or anybody that has been near me should come in and turn out positive. God forbid. But should that happen, I know that it's not on me. This is not on me. I do not own this problem because I had done my part and I had been trying my best to educate people. I have made enemies all around Ho, in the shops, in the pharmacies. You go in, they have no masks on. How can a pharmacy be being run during a public health crisis period? And the pharmacists, trained pharmacists who have been to pharmacy school and know the kinds of medicines that people are coming to buy and what those medications do, they are not wearing masks. They have to see me coming with my tall, angry face, and then they'll scramble and put on their masks so that I don't yell at them. This is the trend, and I always tell people that you are very, very, very selfish, because if you were not self-centered, you would think of whether you might possibly be infecting your customers. But of course, they don't care about that. So for them, when they wake up in the morning, look at their faces in the mirror and they look okay and they feel fine, they don't care about anything else. They go out the door, no masks, because they feel fine. So I always tell them, you don't know where I'm coming from. You don't know where I work. You don't know who I've been in a meeting with. You don't know who I've been around. And I'm walking into your store, and there's 20 of us, 30 of us an hour walking into your shop. How about thinking of protecting yourself? If you don't care about protecting me, do you care about your own self? So this is, I think that the thinking has to change, because like Pastor said, it seems as if they are waiting to see someone coming into the store with mucus running down their face and red eyes and scratching themselves and coughing.
Right.
So that they are convinced that, oh my God, this is a potential COVID-19 person. Unfortunately, we do not see many quote unquote success stories, because every story that you hear is of somebody who has died. And in case we don't know, dead people can't speak. And so we are it. And so when people go about pretending that because they don't look sick, they're okay and nobody knows, and so then they can let down their guard, because after all, they said when you have it, you have a little bit of immunity for 90 days. So within those 90 days, they can just go rambo. This is not true.
Okay.
If you're looking for the face of COVID, I have news for you. It's not in the grave anymore. It's not me. It's you. Look in the mirror, because we're all potentially walking around positive and don't even know it.
Let me move on to Dr. Dwedu.
The fastest growing number. Dr. Dwedu will speak to all of that, but I have news for you. The dead people are not going to be here telling us what to do.
Right. Dr. Dwedu, now let me quickly move on to Dr. Dwedu and find out from you, Doc.
Right.
You are head of a testing center. Tell us, how bad is the situation currently in the vicinity in which you operate? Who to be specific? What is the real situation when it comes to the COVID-19 numbers you're seeing? How are they impacting the community?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. The situation is not getting better. Just to put it literally. Day in, day out, the numbers increase. Sometimes it feels a bit scary when you are getting ready to send out results. And the kind of effect it has, sometimes you are looking at it and you yourself get scared. And I think a couple of weeks ago when I had a cold, I would end up having to test multiple times because I get a cold, I take a few things, it's not going, I test it's negative, and I'm like, am I still incubating? Is it going to come? Because the environment, I know there are many cases, and the cases are not stopping. And so all the time, there are code boxes coming in, contact, suspect, and this is not getting better.
So looking at the situation currently, there also is the problem of people self-medicating. That has become very common now. People start seeing some signs and immediately, especially if they've been told by a friend who has got COVID that this is what to take, then they start taking that. Recently, the director of the GIDC, the Infectious Diseases Center, came out to say that that's a very dangerous trend. You don't need to self-medicate, test, know for certain, and then you can move forward with, treatment. How much of a difficulty is this? People self-medicating and maybe not even coming to test?
So this is a really big issue. And most of the time when people come in to test and you have an interaction, they always tell you that I'm already on medication, I'm already protecting myself and all that. People talk about all kinds of things that they are doing, from the steaming in the neem trees and putting stuff in the nose and just basically doing everything, constantly being on vitamin C and zinc, which sometimes I'm also a culprit of it. But a lot of times, most people are on self-medication. And I think one of the things we fail to recognize is that all these drugs and others are toxins to our bodies. And at the end of the day, it's our liver, our kidneys, which are responsible to clear all of these. So whilst we are on all these medications, eventually, these are going to have effects on us. It's going to affect our livers, it's going to affect our kidneys because of the constant pressure we are subjecting them to. Testing is important, not just for COVID, but for any disease. You test before you get onto medications. And the danger is that if we do not test before getting onto medication, we also subject the entire situation and the virus in our environment to mutate, because constantly it's being exposed, either in subdoses and others, and at the end of the day, it will try to mutate to be able to survive, because life is all about survival of the fittest, and it's not only humans, who want to survive. The viruses also want to survive. Other pathogens want to survive. So the self-medication is common.
Okay.
People are doing it, but it's not the best.
You're a doctor of orthodox medicine. Now, herbal medicine has come into the picture very forcefully. I was just sharing earlier today how Archbishop Kalenda of Cameroon has been pushing for us to turn to herbal remedies to actually cure COVID-19. Our own Cardinal, Turkson has also spoken about some people in the Vatican who supposedly were cured by a herbal remedy. Just today in the papers, we read about Herpa mixture. What is your thinking when it comes to herbal remedies? Do they pose these same risks that you've spoken of with regard to self-medicating?
So actually, herbal remedies will pose higher risks. And that is because there hasn't been so much of refining in putting these herbal remedies together. I should also note that herbal remedies are not new to our environment. For years, we have used them. Even if they haven't been scientifically proven to work, there is that empirical evidence. There are many people who can attest to the fact that they work. But then, taking so much of these will pose even much greater risks, because that preparation that you have will contain many toxic elements. And as you take them in, even though you may have one or two things which are active against the agent, these other toxic elements are going to affect you. And so it's very, very important. In as much as it works, or it may work, we also don't have to abuse it, because we stand to get even worse side effects with herbal remedies, even than the orthodox medicines.
Wow. Dr. Dwedu painting the picture there very clearly. You ought to be very careful with herbal remedies. They could be even more dangerous. But let me come to Dr. Dodoi now. What would you say is the real psychological impact of COVID-19? Both people we're speaking to this morning, the survivors, appear to have had panic attacks at some point. Inability to sleep, this fear among others stirring up. How much of an impact psychologically does COVID have on a sufferer?
Thank you very much for having me. The challenge we have is that it's not only because of COVID, but any condition that communication about the condition is not clear, we tend to panic about it. And then there's this also that history knows that when people don't understand anything, they would ascribe spirituality to it. So some people, and in Ghana, we are very religious. So some people will think that, oh, because I have sinned, because God is not happy with me, that is why I'm getting this infection. But the challenge is that, these are infections, these are things that happen. And we don't necessarily have a treatment for it though. But we know that majority of people who get infected do not die. And a lot more people do not even have symptoms at all. So if we are able to preach this message about the fact that the COVID-19 is not like a death penalty, and that we can treat it, and early intervention is important. So that understanding that, in fact, this condition is not as bad as it appears. Yeah, that can lift people's, fears and all that.
Okay. True.
For you to be told of a condition you don't know much about, like if you take the history of, the history of HIV. Initially, we were only showing people who were vomiting and emaciated and all that. But now, the attitude towards people who have HIV has really decreased. So anxiety, yes. And in fact, if you don't have any anxiety, you die early. So there's a bit of anxiety necessary for us to be able to perform. So there's a bit of anxiety which is necessary for you to seek healthcare because you are not well. So, but when the anxiety moves, when the scare moves to where it paralyzes you, that it affects your work. In these two instances, their relationship with their family, whether to go close them is love, or to go or to get away from them is the love you are showing them. So that becomes a challenge for everybody. Okay. So it's important we educate on the condition and the fact that it is not necessarily life-threatening for everyone who gets it.
Okay. Let me
once we get across that communication phase, then we'll be able to take away a lot of the anxiety, and then the danger that the priest was putting about to start medication before your test is positive. If you have symptoms suggestive of COVID, please see a doctor and let's assess you and diagnose. The challenge with taking medication or taking self-medication is that the drugs themselves do not treat the virus. The drug does not kill the virus. It does not remove the virus. It only improves your ability to fight the virus. So as Pamela was saying, Dr. Mbodu was saying, if we keep on abusing these drugs, especially the antibiotics, very soon that same drug will not work for the conditions they have been known over the years to work for.
Okay, Doc, I have to interrupt.
When we get into that,
right?
That means that we are going to have to get new molecules, get new antibiotics that can actually treat other conditions, and that will be a disastrous situation. The very high costs.
Right. Let me just take a pause here. We have a caller on the line, and you can call the number on your screens. Na Amanua from Kwabenya. Na, welcome on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, hello. Good morning, Ben. I hope you're well.
I'm very well. Hope you are too.
Yes.
What's your COVID story?
Well, my COVID story is this. Just a week ago, I started having headaches and neck ache, and not down with like flu symptoms, I could say. And so I thought, oh, let me go. I went. They told me 12 hours. I said, okay.
Hello, now. Are you still on the line? Hello. Oh, it appears we have lost Na Amanua, who is just about to share her story. But let me quickly come to Dr. Dodoi. Let me return to you. Okay, so Na is back on the line. Na, please go ahead.
Yes. So, so I was diagnosed with typhoid, which was the following day. Yes, but no malaria symptoms. And then after 12 hours, I got my results to say I was positive. Now, that threw me back a bit because I don't know what COVID symptoms are. You hear about this. It's different with everybody. I'm fine. I'm okay. But then it's this neck ache and the headache that was bothering me. As far as I'm concerned, I have typhoid. But I don't know about the COVID. And that is also a bit confusing for me.
Wow. So as of now, you're not certain you have COVID-19?
I know. I am not very sure, but I'm waiting. I'm in isolation. I am waiting after the end of the second week, and I'll go and test again to see what I have. Because I haven't been down. I'm not like lying there helplessly. I am fine. It's just at the moment I've been on antibiotics. I've done all the things. I'm on all the vitamins. The only thing is knocked me back for appetite. I can't smell. I can't eat. I'm forcing liquid down me, but I don't feel for food at all. At all.
Wow, you've lost your appetite, and it's terrible. Now, do you mind sharing with us, how old are you?
I'm 71.
71?
Yes.
Right.
But a strong one at that.
I can tell from your voice. So you are in isolation then, or at least you're quarantining?
I am in my house, and I haven't even been outside my sitting room, even to play with my dogs or do anything like that. I'm just inside, yes. And so, I've stopped my grandchildren coming. I've stopped everybody that comes, and with this.
To wrap up, so what is the next move for you?
Well, the next move for me is to do the next test and see what's going on with me, and then hopefully I can find some kind of treatment for this typhoid, because I got this typhoid actually last year from the hotel we stayed in, during the COVID when it first started. Yes.
Right.
And mentally, I am strong. I try to, work my mind not to be so scared, especially, and I'm asthmatic as well. But I work myself and think positive and move on.
Now, thank you very much for sharing your story. Let me come back to Dr. Dodoi very briefly. Now, the psychological impact could people, and I'll just have you note this question because we have a caller on the line. Can it determine whether you heal or you heal quicker or even pass on? How you approach COVID-19 psychologically? I'll come to you on that right after this call. Papa in Lashibi also joins us. Papa, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much. We are all following the protocol. Let's say we are putting on our nose masks and things like that. But the government is not helping matters. 1 week now, the tap is not running. So how do we observe the washing of hands with running water? That's the question. Government should sit up. You understand me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Grave concern there being shared by Papa from Lashibi. Sam Enla also joins the conversation. Sam, what is your COVID experience?
Okay, so back in June last year, somewhere mid of June, I went for a wedding. I was actually an MC at the wedding. So I returned home, and on Sunday, my wife being pregnant, she had a temperature.
Wow.
So we thought it was just pregnancy temperature. But early 1 a.m. Monday morning, I realized the temperature has gone to 39. We spoke to the midwife, and the midwife advised that she believed it was an infection. So we had to go to the hospital. So I remember rushing her to the hospital, right? And she was put on drips to regularize the temperature. They actually said it was a yeast infection, blah, blah, blah. But I realized she had anosmia, that she couldn't smell. And I didn't want to scare her because I knew it was something COVID, right? And the next day, we returned from the hospital, I think, on Tuesday. Yeah, but she did a COVID test on Monday, right? And I started feeling cold, which is not normal. So I was bathing hot water. And I had flu. The flu went yellow, thick yellow. So I know when I get flu, and when 5 days it's gone. But I realized it was still there, right? So I got on longevity and Muse, and I started taking amoxiclav to help clear the flu. The results came 3 weeks later.
Wow.
Yes. And you know when the results came, we're going to do a scan. So as soon as we got to the destination, she had a call that she's positive. So I just had to calm her down. We went to check and the baby was fine. You get it? So for me, no matter what you do, just boost your immune system, honestly, because our system is not designed in a way to social distance. Familiarity breeds contempt. So you will not even wear your mask when you meet a family member or a friend. It's just like that. So for me, I believe let's all boost our immune system.
Right.
Honestly.
Now, Papa and Sam, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Moving, touching. Let me come to Dr. Dodoi very quickly on these two matters so we can get to wrap up with what the way forward is. I was talking to you about what these psychological matters could have, the impact. Could it affect healing? Could it even impact whether someone makes it or not? And quickly as well, I want you to attach, it appears a lot of people are getting COVID, but they are in denial. Why is that?
Yeah. Okay, so let me start from the last one. I mean, denial is a normal human response to any bad news, anything. So your partner is dead, your parent is dead. Initially, you want to believe probably there was something wrong, somebody didn't check something, but that makes you feel good that no, probably there's something. It's not my fault. It's not. I mean, you want to reverse. So it's actually a wishful thinking which come out. I mean, really. So and that's a normal response. So, some people can respond with getting angry. People can respond in any way. And then, so these are how we respond to things that threaten our very livelihoods. So, I mean, when you get bad news, you want to find out, am I going to survive this and all that? Unfortunately, and very unfortunately, when people are anxious and have anxiety challenges, the body produces hormones that will decrease your immunity. So, in fact, if we don't psychologically prepare people when we are testing them, when we are advising them on treatment and all that, if we don't kind of prepare them psychologically, they are, I mean, non-preparation is going to decrease their immunity, and they are more likely to calm down under COVID. They are more likely to fall or get sicker. They are more likely to, if you get sicker, you're more likely to lose your life. So it's very important we understand. And I think I would also want to probably advise my colleagues, doctors. In fact, I've heard this is not the first time I'm hearing of typhoid being misdiagnosed for, I mean, a COVID. It's just, so let's do our job well. Let's make the correct diagnosis and let's treat people.
When you say let's do our job well, are you suggesting some doctors are not doing the work well?
And secondly, the caller also mentioned about amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic, which has got nothing to do, I mean, with a viral infection. It is given if after the viral, we suspect you have an imposed bacterial infection, then we can go in for the antibiotics.
So very quickly, Doc.
You can see there's a lot of misinformation going around. There's a lot of loose ends. People are not sure of what is happening, and they're getting pieces of advice from everywhere. Unfortunately, some of them
So you feel some doctors are misdiagnosing?
This kind of exaggerates and, I mean, amplify the fears that people have, that one doctor says this, another doctor is saying that. So it is very important my colleagues come on board, and then we do proper assessment, and then people should know that every condition we take a history, we examine before we give treatment. So self-medication really is not good. And people must understand also that these things are the fact that you want to protect us, or it should be more, it's something that should cost, I mean, make you want to pay more. That yes, if I have it, it is better I isolate, it's better I do all that than to get others involved. But the self-denial and the denial stuff will sometimes kind of like paralyze you, and you will not be able to. And again, Maria mentioned about she telling people to wash their hands and wear their mask and all that. Yes, that tells you that these things are not foolproof. I mean, all that we are asking people to do is to say that they will decrease the likelihood of getting the infection. There's social distancing, hand washing, each of them would decrease your likelihood of getting an infection. So when you put all the three together, then it makes it, I mean, less and less likely to get the infection. But that doesn't mean...
Let me come to Dr. Duedu at this point in time. So if you can hear me, Dr. Duedu. So we'll be wrapping up with Maria and Shadrach shortly. But Dr. Duedu, I just want to run this quickly by you. Do you also agree that some doctors may be misdiagnosing when it comes to COVID? Because some are saying it's malaria, some are saying it's typhoid and all of that. Is there misdiagnosis in there?
So it's probably a yes and no. A yes in the sense that when you take malaria, for example, sometimes we don't wait for a test. And for the fact that the person is showing symptoms which you are so familiar with, it is instantly diagnosed as malaria. And we have similar situations for other diseases. No, in the sense that sometimes there's actually a co-infection or a mixed infection. So we have had instances where people have gone in, have tested positive for malaria or tested positive for another disease, and then they also have COVID. So it's important we have that differential being done, and that is something which at the moment is lacking in most of our facilities, whereby differential diagnosis is not routinely done properly. So it's important that if a person has more than one infection, you diagnose, you are aware that the person has more than one infection.
Okay.
And then you can met out the right treatment. So we have those two situations, the mixed infections and then the diagnosis, which is just based on assessment of what somebody is telling you. That definitely is wrong.
So Shadrach and Maria, to wrap up. Shadrach, what would you say is the foremost lesson you've learned from getting COVID-19? Now you're a COVID ambassador. What is the lesson you've learned?
COVID ambassador, indeed. Well, I think that before I answer that, let me.
Shadrach, unfortunately, we don't have enough time for a prelude. So please, if you could go straight to the answer.
We had 9 days of testing. We have tested about 9 days. The result have not come. So the doctors saw the symptoms and they thought that we have to start the medication. So it wasn't self-medication. That's just that, by the way. I think that the lesson I have learned most is that people are unknowingly killing their neighbors by infecting them with COVID. Because if you are positive and you are not aware, you have not even tested, you are not showing symptoms, and you get somebody infected, and this person dies, sometimes you don't even know that you got the person infected. And then you kill this person because in ICU at Kolebu, a patient that I was sharing the ward with died. And the question that came in my mind was, is the person who infected this man even aware that he got this man infected? And is he aware that his negligence or probably whatever he did to infect this man has caused the life of this person and his family?
So the lesson in there would be?
The lesson is that, and I'm picking it from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 to 17. The Bible says that we should be wise because, if you allow me, let me quickly read that. And this is what the Bible says. It says that, see that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. People should just understand that we are not in normal times. This is not a time to celebrate birthdays and enjoy yourself with certain things. That will lead to the infection of somebody.
Maria, we'll wrap up with you on your lesson. Thank you, Shadrach. Maria, so what would you say is the foremost lesson you've learned from this that you would leave Ghanaians with?
Sorry, my turn, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
yes.
Your experience, what is the foremost lesson you can share with Ghanaians?
Right. For me, the biggest takeaway from all of this is the fact that our efforts are not in isolation. They will not work in isolation. We have to work in tandem. And until you see other people's lives as worthy as your own, then you will not assign the same amount of value to protecting them as you do to protecting yourself. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily going to result in harm happening to them and then you going scot-free. Because guess what? By not protecting somebody else, you're increasing your own risk. You're increasing the risk of people that you love. And we require discipline and a concerted effort to make this thing work.
Okay.
This is my biggest takeaway.
Thank you so much, all of you. Maria Jura is Director of Public Affairs, University of Health and Allied Sciences. We're also joined by Dr. Dodoy, who actually Dr. Eugene Dodoy, who happens to be Head of Psychological Medicine and Mental Health Department, School of Medicine, University of Health and Allied Sciences. We had Dr. Duedu as well, who is head of the COVID-19 Testing Center at the University of Health and Allied Sciences, and Shadrach Opong, a COVID-19 survivor as well. Lady, gentlemen, thank you so much, and we wish you, Shadrach and Maria, the very best. Do stay with us. There's more coming up on the AM show. We talk the election petition and more. Do stay.
This year, we don't intend to do double track for the first years. The reason is simple. You know, the government policy was that we're going to work over a period of about 5 to 7 years to phase out the double track. So the double track came in because of the subscription, as I've already said, of some schools that people wanted to go into. And we felt that we should give them the opportunity to do that. In almost all these schools, we've built enough to cater for the students so that they don't necessarily have to do double track. So if you take a school that before double track, for example, was taking, let's say, 500 students, we decided during the period of double track for that school to take maybe 450 for a track, another 450 for another track. So that school was now taking 900 students. What we've done in that school now, that we're saying that they're not going to do double track, is that now that school is going to take that 900 at a stretch. So we don't necessarily need to put them into tracks. So the advantage is that now they can go a single track. But the disadvantage is that that school is still oversubscribed. So you still have a team of people still waiting out there. So if that school can now take 900, why wouldn't us decide that that school should be given that opportunity to do 2 900s, so that this time around it will not do just 900, but it will do 1,800. Okay. And I think this is a conversation that as a country we need to take up.
But then why are you then yielding or bowing to the criticism? Because there were concerns about this double track. So it appears that government is bowing to pressure, or the GES is bowing to that kind of pressure, hence the decision to phase it out.
No, we are not bowing to that pressure. Obviously, we set ourselves a target. It's a policy that we indicated that this policy will travel over this period.
No, we are not yet.
Yeah, so we're still going. Okay. So what we need to do is that we said that we'll be phasing it out gradually. What we need to do in the course of it, we still need to engage ourselves and still be talking about it and see, because the fact of the matter is that no matter what the situation, we can never ever build to catch up with the numbers. We can never ever build to catch up with the numbers. So whilst we are doing it this way, we still need to look at it and then go back to the policy and try to review it and see how best that policy can apply to ensure that we serve the country better.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at least as it stands now, for the first years, there will be no
double track.
How? Well, the news is that this year, the first year student that will be going into the senior high school will not be on a double track. Point is, the placement system was expected to have placed students. Yesterday, Sunday, the list was expected to be out, but the Ghana Education Service did issue a statement. We'll be speaking to them shortly to understand what the situation is. when we should be expecting that. Cassandra, all right. Hello, good morning. Cassandra speaks for the Ghana Education Service. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Mama B.
Okay, great. So first of all, we just played back this interview with the Ghana Education Service Director General, where he says that the first-year students this year will not be on a double-track system. So I want to ask, first of all, about the statement that you issued yesterday in terms of the placement. What is the status of that now?
All right, Mama B. Good morning to your viewers and listeners as well. Yes, yesterday you realized that last week there was a report in the Daily Graphic that placements barring any hitches would be released yesterday. That was Sunday. And we realized that per our preparations, we could not go live because we had to put a number of measures in place. And I specifically indicated setting up call centers across the country because this year, the solution centers that we used to have, especially at the Independence Square and other regional education offices, would not be available. Obviously because of COVID-19, because we don't want to create the opportunity for people to breach the protocol. And so how then do we ensure that people having placement-related issues lodge their complaints? And that's exactly what we are working on call center. In fact, 2 years ago, we had a call center, but because we had these other avenues, many of them wanted that face-to-face interaction, so they went to these centers, and then the few that also called us, we were able to respond. This time, we are expanding, and so many of them will be calling. We have a messaging system where people can send a text and an email system, and so we are working so hard on that so that people who have issues can lodge their complaints. And we know per our research, Mama V, that many of the people that also even came to our ends or at the solution centers were those within the self-placement category. And knowing that now, that a number of them had that issue, we have also resolved that this time, if you are not lucky to fall within your chosen school, and you fall out based on your performance, and the system asks you to proceed to self-placement, you can change your self-placement as many times as you want. So that is the new thing that we have introduced.
Okay.
That should you not get any of your chosen schools and you have to do a self-placement. You know, Mama B, previously, and if you remember our interviews, I said that if you choose a school, you can't change it. On self-placement, you cannot change it. But this time, and so you have people coming, I wasn't there, and the cafe attendant chose the school for my ward, I sent somebody, in fact, we chose the school, and now I want to change. And then some would even say that, oh, we didn't even know, we made a mistake, we didn't even know the school was a day school. Now we are saying that you can change the school as many times as you want. Once it's a self-placement.
All right. So Cassandra, when the GES director says that the first-year student will not be on double track, I want to ask you the numbers. How many students are we expecting?
We are expecting over 500,000 students, 535,000 students here.
And if we're not doing a double track, we can contain these numbers?
Yes, we are not doing a double track. You remember when we began this double track discussion, I said, and that has been the case all the time when we talk about double track. It wasn't a permanent thing. It was just temporarily, and so we never said double track would be a permanent. Something that has come to stay.
Okay,
and so yes, they won't be on double track because we said we will improve upon infrastructure, and that's exactly what has happened.
So we have more classrooms to contain the students?
Of course, we have all the classrooms. You know very well that double track, definitely you won't get the entire population in the school. By the time the first years is going, section of the students will also be at home. Because very soon they would also vacate.
And we're mindful again, Cassandra, of COVID and the fact that we have to do physical distancing in the classrooms.
Yes, and that's the reason why by the time that they also go to school, a section of the students will also not be there, creating space for the Form 1. And so definitely we wouldn't have that issue.
Okay.
So indeed, if they don't do double track, it's not going to affect anything and they are not going to be crowded because at that particular point in time, you will not have the entire student population on campus.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Double track doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Okay. But we have the third years and the second years on double track.
We have the second years on double, third years are not on double track.
Okay. All right. Cassandra, thank you very much. We have to engage some stakeholders on the back of that. So thank you very much. Let's speak to my other guest on this conversation in a little bit. Mr. Peter Nti is Executive Director, Institute of Educational Studies, IFEST. Good morning to you. Mr. Kofi Asare is Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I want to come to you first, Mr. Kofi Asare. What do you make of the fact that we have over 500,000 students going into first year, but the Ghana Education Service says that they will not be on double track? This is certainly good news, right?
Good morning to your cherished audience. Good morning, Peter. It's heartwarming that we are seeing the end of double track much earlier. We indicated to government that we didn't need 5 to 7 years to resolve this issue, as government, earlier portrayed. And we kept making the point that double track will not necessarily end when infrastructure is enhanced. No. Double track will end when we take a decision on how to manage the demand and supply of placements. Now, you heard the Director General saying that we need to have a discussion as to whether we want to allow a school to take 900 instead of its capacity to take 1,800 if it went on double track. The issue about double track, we have always maintained, has more to do with the management of demand for placement. Why is it so? Because there are many schools that are virtually empty. They are doing 30 to 40% occupancy when there is 60% vacancy there, but no one is choosing these schools. So because we've allowed a free market system to fester in the placement regime, the state is minded to keep expanding infrastructure along the lines of demand. But we'll get to a point where you realize that it is not a sustainable practice for us to have schools sitting there unpatronized and schools being oversubscribed. The solution is not always expanding infrastructure. At a point, we'll get to the point, and it will take about just 2 years. We'll get there when you realize that the demand for the so-called first and second class schools will be so high that the state will have to intervene and manage or interfere in the recent free market system where demand and supply is dictating everything about placement. Other than that, the infrastructure available in third-class schools, most of the third-class schools, will go to waste. That is the only way you can solve double track sustainably, and not building new schools every time, because that is not sustainable. So we are happy that we are now on the same page in respect of ending double track, and we are also happy that it has come before the 7 or 5 year time frame that government gave. And we hope that it goes to enhance the quality of teaching and learning in our secondary schools.
Okay. So let me ask, Peter, what has changed on the ground? Are you confident that even though we're scrapping this, at least for the first year students going into school this year, we will still be able to contain the numbers comfortably?
Yeah,
Good morning. I think, yes, we should be able to contain the numbers. There's a model that this particular government decided to pursue, a model that was previously employed by President Kufuor between 2000 and 2008. That is to expand the infrastructure in the schools rather than going to build new schools. And I think that is the model that the government pursued, and because of that, there's been an expansion in the infrastructure in most of the schools that normally get a lot of applications from prospective students, and that is why the ministry and the education service is confident that they should be, or they would be able to allow these students to go to school without putting them on any form of track system. So yes, a lot have gone on the grounds in terms of expansion of infrastructure in these schools, and we are hoping that when the students get to campus, we'll be able to contain them. But you asked a very important question. I think when we were interviewing Cassandra, you asked about how they will be able to ensure social distancing if they are abolishing this double track, and looking at the numbers that will be going to the schools. I think that's something that they should have had their minds to, because if the schools are going to run single track and the students are going to be as the normal number of students that we know, then it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to practice the protocols in terms, especially.
Well, unfortunately, I think we lost Peter there, but Kofi Asare is still with me. I also want your take on this issue. Even those in the junior high schools, some of them are practicing the shift system now. And to say that the senior high school student, the first year student, would not be on double track, you have welcomed it, but how confident are you that we'll be able to still respect the COVID protocols, even though Cassandra says that some of the other students in the higher classes will not be in school at the time that these first year students would get into school?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Peter. I thought I lost you, so I was directing my next question to Kofi, but since you're back, continue.
Oh, okay. So I was talking about how they are going to handle that. The same question that you were posing to Kofi. How they have put in place mechanisms to handle that, to ensure that the protocols are dealt with as they are supposed to. I think that is something that they really need to stay down and strategize. We don't want the situation whereby the students will get to the schools and complaints will start coming. And that is something that we are afraid might happen in terms of the student population overcrowding the entire student campus. So our focus will be on the dining halls and then the dormitories and possibly the classrooms. I know definitely there will be arrangements to handle the students in the classrooms, but especially the dormitories. How do they think that they will be able to contain the numbers when they have indicated that they're not running double track? I think that is something that they should have had their minds to.
Okay, so Kofi, even though this is welcoming, it's something that you are looking forward to. Is it a wise decision now, knowing that the junior students are even doing shifts in some schools?
Juxtaposing the concern raised by Peter in respect of COVID physical distancing requirements in the classroom and dormitories, I want to shudder to suggest that, you see, on paper, statistically, we have created more spaces in classrooms and dormitories through the expansion of infrastructure over the past 2 years to warrant the phasing out of the double track. But that is different from ensuring an efficient distribution of demand across these spaces created. They are two different things. You may have increased the capacity of PRESEC from admitting 1,000 a cohort to 2,000 in view of the expansion works there. But you see, you may also have expanded the capacity of, let's say, Chufupra Secondary School to also double their capacity. The challenge is now how to convince Ghanaians to select Chufupra Secondary School, even as they also select PRESEC. Because if only 50% of the extra space created in Chufupra Secondary School is subscribed, because our placement system is purely based on demand and supply, then you will have a situation where there will be 50% underutilized spaces in Chufupra Secondary School. And that underutilized space will obviously go and create more problems for the more demanded or more subscribed pre-sec. And so as I keep saying, statistically, we may have created adequate seats in the classrooms and adequate beds in the dormitories by virtue of the expansion works. But the distribution of students through the computerized school placement system is what will provide the assurance of the efficient use of these spaces created. If the state does not intervene, as we keep saying, if we leave the issue of selecting of schools to be determined by demand and supply, we will never be able to optimally use or optimize the use of existing infrastructure and also the new spaces created. At a point, the government will have to come in and say, Kofi Asare, you have chosen to go to Presec, but you have to go to Chufupra Secondary School because Presec is full after doubling their intake by 100% due to the expansion works. But we doubled the intake in Chufupra, but people did not subscribe to it enough. And so you have to go here because that's where there's space. At a point, if that intervention is not done, no matter the level of infrastructural expansion, we will always have underutilized infrastructure in some schools and have oversubscribed infrastructure in the first and second class schools. And that is why I'm saying that merely building extra classrooms and dormitories in schools is not only the solution to the double track. It actually dwells on expanding infrastructure one and facilitating a more equitable distribution of students so that every expanded infrastructure is optimized. Other than that, we will have a situation where there will be pressure on the first and second class schools, and then the grade A and grade B schools, which will lead to the congestion that moved us into double track.
Okay, that's a great suggestion, but isn't that a bit dictatorial? It means that students and parents are no longer going to be selecting schools, or if their chosen schools are full, then the state or the Ghana Education Service is compulsorily putting them in a different school because there's space there. Peter, I wonder what you make of this.
I don't think
that's
so
not exactly what you're suggesting?
In a country where secondary education is free, the state is paying for everything, including boarding fees. Ordinarily, compared to what goes on in other countries, it is not the parent that the state has a right to determine where the student should go to school. If the state places you in Tamale Secondary School, knowing very well that you live in Medina, the state has an obligation to provide an environment there suitable for you. And so once boarding is free and feeding is free, there is no basis for the state to assume that a perfect democracy can fester in a sustained placement regime. No.
Interesting. For
us to ensure an optimal use of available spaces in our schools and prevent the over-democratization of the school placement regime will have to be interfered with. Other than that, we cannot achieve that equilibrium.
Peter, what do you make of that?
We've tried this before. Government, the CES, PSS have tried to post students to schools that they did not choose, and we've seen the backlash from the public. We've seen how people have complained about the awards being posted to schools they never chose. So we should be careful embarking on such a journey. What we think the government should do is to try and make sure that schools are resourced to the extent that their standards are up with those that we call the so-called first-class schools. You see, if a student would attend a school in a place that is not an urban center, and the student will still pass, I think that the students will prefer to be in that school than to go to any school that at the end of the day will not be able to make his grades. So it should, the focus, the government intervention my brother is talking about, for me, should be more on resourcing these students and try to uplift the academic performance to a level that can be compared to that of any other first-class school. about 5-6 years back, most of us never knew of Manfi Girls. Most of us never knew or heard of Manfi Girls. And now, because of their achievements in these robotics, a lot of people are sending their awards there. That is what I'm talking about. There should be a deliberate policy by any government or institution to resource these schools in terms of teachers, educational materials, and all those things that will bring the academic work to a level that we are so much proud of, and we talk about in the other schools. But to force students to go to schools of not schools that they didn't choose, schools that they are not in favor of, I think it's going to be very difficult. Of course, they can resort to the self-placement that Cassandra has been talking about. So if they notify you that the schools that you selected are full, you still have the opportunity to still self-place yourself in other schools that are available to you. But I don't think it's right for the authorities to determine the schools or the schools that one should attend. I think for that, it's something that we should not pursue. We should try and improve the academic conditions in these schools so that there will be suitable schools for us to send our awards in and not focus on we trying to force them into these schools. Okay, well, gentlemen, we will continue this conversation when the placements release is out. But for now, I thank you, Kofi Asari and Peter Enti. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time here on the AM show. Stay with us. Kadi has got show business news right after this.
Good morning, guys. I welcome you to another segment of Showbiz right here on the AM show. Now, gospel musician MOG has condemned people who criticize gospel artists who collaborate with secular arts. Now, in this interview with Andy Dusty on Daybreak Hits, he said it causes division. There's more.
Anything that brings division, there's a way by which you can preach what you want to preach without necessarily creating a division. I understand that it's a sacred call, it's that, and blah, 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 blah. But in your stead as a minister, your goal is to go out there and reach out to people, by any means, by anyhow, that the gospel will be heard. We just have to preach the gospel. The one who really does the transformation is the Holy Spirit. So, you tell the person whatever they want to hear. By your way of life, the person watches you and says that, I see emoji from afar. The way he does his things, Charlie, I just want to know more about Christianity. And then the Holy Spirit takes over. So I'm not for the view that gospel artists are not supposed to feature secular artists. Gospel bank don't play guitars in your church, because the person who designed the guitar may not even be, it's not a Christian. Yamaha is not a Christian company, but we play with Yamaha motif in church. The drums we play, Pearl is not a Christian company. We need to be very realistic. Christ came for a reason, to preach love. We are saved by grace. So how can we that are saved by grace stand and condemn somebody?
Okay, so that was MOG, and that's all we have for Showbiz for this morning. There's more Showbiz at midday.
And that's how we wrap up this morning on the AM show. But before that, special request, 10th marriage anniversary to Sydney Danso of Equip Health Ghana and Lieutenant Colonel Danso of the 37 Military Hospital. It's a wrap for another day on the AM show. Do enjoy the rest of the day.